I mean, you've said there's an attack on the Constitution. That feels very clear here. I think a question a lot of people have is, what can be done to stop it?
We got 125 cases that have been filed across the country, and 50 federal courts have already entered temporary restraining orders or preliminary injunctions against Trump.
Señores, a lo largo de los años hemos visto muchas publicaciones absurdas de Donald Trump. Pero lo que compartió en Truth Social el día de ayer realmente se lleva el premio a la locura. Todo esto porque se filtró una imagen suya en el Capitolio Estatal de Colorado, que, según él, lo dejaba en ridículo. Su reacción fue un berrinche en toda la regla, al punto que decidió compartir la foto él mismo de lo indignado que estaba. Sean bienvenidos a Políticamente Desacuerdo. Señores, hoy veremos cómo Donald Trump a medianoche entra en crisis, luego de que se filtra una imagen. Así que los invito a que se queden hasta el final del video porque traemos detalles muy interesantes. Bueno amigos, todo este episodio comenzó cuando la foto de Trump en el Capitolio Estatal de Colorado empezó a circular. Como era de esperarse, se volvió loco. En vez de ignorarla, como creo que haría cualquier persona sensata, optó por hacerlo todo un escándalo. Aprovechó para atacar al gobernador de Colorado, Jared Polis, y lanzó una serie de declaraciones que, amigo, son totalmente incoherentes. Antes de meternos de lleno en lo que dijo, quiero que escuchen un poco lo que dijo el congresista Jamie Roskin opinando sobre las amenazas y los ataques de Trump que ha hecho en contra de funcionarios públicos. Así que veamos este clip.
So we can see there's a problem here, to state the obvious, and we're faced with some tough questions. I mean, what is the solution? And what is our system able to do? And again, those are tricky questions to answer because his history, as I've noted here, doesn't exactly serve as a guide. Joining me now is Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. He's the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. He is the perfect person to talk to about historical precedent, the moment we're in, all of the things. So let me just start with kind of where I ended there. I mean, you've said there's an attack on the Constitution. That feels very clear here. I think a question a lot of people have is, what can be done to stop it?
We got 125 cases that have been filed across the country, and 50 federal courts have already entered temporary restraining orders or preliminary injunctions against Trump. So let's start with the positive news that the courts are working, they're doing their job. That's why they're talking about impeaching all these federal judges. That's why they're attacking Judge Boasberg for insisting on answers, because you can't disobey an order of a federal court. As Chief Justice Roberts emphasized this week, the proper response to disagreement with the substance of a judicial opinion is to appeal the opinion, not to try to impeach the judge, certainly not for people to go out and visit threats upon the judge and the judge's family. And so we've got to play these cases out in court. The Trump administration has just thrown caution to the winds. I mean, the great example of this, of course, is the birthright citizenship executive order. The first sentence of the 14th Amendment says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. It is just as plain as day. And we have Obama judges, Biden judges, Reagan judges, Trump judges, all striking down what Trump did. In fact, the Reagan judge said it was the easiest case he'd ever decided in his life. You don't have to be a lawyer to know what's wrong with you. You just have to know how to read. And in case after case, they say, you have just totally blown past the Constitution. So we've got to stand up for the independence of the judiciary. And we see this happening all over the world now, that when courts block an autocratic executive or someone with dictatorial ambitions, they begin to attack the judges, they attack the lawyers, they attack the law firms. That's what's happening in America right now. And so the whole country has got to stand up for the independence of the judiciary and for the rule of law.
Donald Trump lleva años quejándose de la supuesta persecución en su contra. Pero ahora la conversación ha cambiado. Ya no se trata de acusaciones falsas contra el gobierno de Biden, sino de cómo Trump podría usar el Departamento de Justicia para castigar a sus enemigos políticos. Lo más preocupante es que cualquier pequeña cosa puede desatar su ira. Ahora lo que publicó sobre Jared Polis es un ejemplo perfecto. Y lo siento, pero da para reírse un momento mientras se lee esto porque es ridículo. Donald Trump escribió lo siguiente: preferiría no tener una foto a tener esta. Pero muchas personas en Colorado han llamado y han escrito para quejarse. De hecho, están enojadas por ello. Estoy hablando en su nombre al gobernador radical de izquierda, Jared Polis, que es extremadamente débil en temas de criminalidad. Después de esto, procedió a compartir la imagen que tanto lo molestaba, en la que, seamos honestos, solo luce un poco más joven, pero también más hinchado de la cara. Luego, como si eso no fuese suficiente, compartió su retrato oficial, como si esto fuese a arreglar algo. Amigos, estamos hablando de un hombre que alguna vez tuvo acceso a los códigos nucleares. Un presidente que en plena madrugada está publicando porque no le gusta cómo se ve en una pintura, en una foto. O sea, en serio, este es su foco de atención en un momento en el que la economía está en crisis, en el que en el mercado de valores tambalea. Miles de personas están perdiendo sus empleos. ¿Es divertido? Sí, pero es más que divertido, es preocupante. Donald Trump está completamente desconectado de la realidad. Y este episodio, amigos, lo demuestra más que nunca. Afortunadamente, ¿no? Hay líderes que sí están enfocados en lo que realmente importa. De hecho, si no me equivoco, si es que no lo han visto, hace unos días seguidos, vimos a la demócrata Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, lo hemos visto a Bernie Sanders, en Colorado también, denunciando las políticas desastrosas de Trump y cómo los líderes republicanos han abandonado por completo la lucha por la gente común. Veamos un fragmento de lo que dijo Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
But I am here to remind you all that we are not powerless in this moment. People are starting to put the pieces together. And ironically, the most divisive forces in this country are actually starting to bring more of us together. And that's important. Because the same billionaires who are taking a wrecking ball to our country derive their power from dividing working people apart. They specialize in getting us to turn on one another, along lines of left or right, of race and gender, of status, of creed, of culture, of who you love. They will throw out every label and judgment and cultural debate in the book in order to keep us distracted, because the last thing they want us to realize is that the actual division in this country is between those at the very, very top and their endless greed costing the lives of everyone else. And that's why we must stand together, Arizona. We gotta get ready for this fight. Now, I understand that their disdain for working people by some of the most powerful people in this country doesn't just come from not being raised right, okay? This disdain is shorthand for the right's entire political agenda and a certain ugly kind of politics in this country. And that is lying to and screwing over working and middle-class Americans so that they can steal our health care, Social Security, and veterans benefits in order to pay for their tax cuts for the billionaires and bailouts for their crypto friends. And you know what, Arizona? There's a certain kind of word for this kind of thing: corruption. And I understand what it feels like to watch all of this stack up. From how overwhelming and brazen all this selfishness is, the constant headlines and notifications dismantling the Department of Education, trying to end birthright citizenship, the things that make us American. I understand how overwhelming it can feel. And it can make even the best of us want to give in to despair, to feel tired, to feel like there's not much worth fighting for. Because when the system is stacked against you, It's hard to feel like anything you do matters. It's hard to feel like we matter in this democracy. And it is easy to give in to the despair. And I can tell you, I know that when I was waitressing and struggling to put food on the table, for a while there, I did. I tried to stop caring. I tried to just keep my head down, work my shifts, and accept that this is just how things are. But that is no way to live, Arizona. It's no way to live. What I do know is that we don't have to live like this. And in fact, we cannot live like this anymore. And you know, I'll tell you, Donald Trump does see the immense pressure that working people are under. But his answer to that pressure is an America that operates on a logic of every man for himself. And I do say every man for himself because he sure doesn't believe in women's rights. But now that Trump is back in power, we can see it clear as day. He's handed the keys of this country to Elon Musk and is selling off the United States for parts to the richest people on the planet for a kickback. And in exchange, these billionaires and corporations and lobbying industries will back his campaigns and fund them as well as those of his allies. They scratch his back and he scratches theirs, and the rest of us get left behind.
Es esto exactamente de lo que hablo. Si necesitan voces como las de Alexandria, como las de Bernie, como las de Jamie Raskin, como las de Jasmine Crockett, que puedan contrarrestar toda esta locura. Pongan sobre la mesa los problemas reales del país. O sea, es genial ver a más demócratas llenando ese vacío de liderazgo que los republicanos están dejando. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Como siempre, apóyame dándome un like, compartiendo este video con tus amigos y suscribiéndote a nuestro canal Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.